Yeah, no context was added, and this was obviously not a joke due to your response. So if you guys have been living under a rock for the past over a week now, I would say, Jake Paul got into some controversy. Or rather, he's a part of it, but he isn't the one who's in trouble here. Yeah, I know, big shocker, Jake Paul is actually innocent, go fucking figure. So if you guys don't know, he went on this show called Jamele and Cari, or whatever the fuck, on Vice TV. And I don't really watch Vice, so like I didn't learn about this until like it actually blew up, like within 2 days of that episode actually airing. So yeah, this is something. So these two idiots decided to go ahead and ask Jake Paul if him knocking out his opponent, Nate Robinson, in a boxing match, where Nate Robinson challenged him, was actually racist.
Jake, consider where we are right now in our racial conversation in America. Was what you did to Nate Robinson racist?
After everybody actually saw this, it took these two almost an entire week to come up with a response for it, and instead they go ahead and come up with the I'm joking narrative. Go ahead and tune into our next episode. So nice little plug you got there, but yeah, I didn't really tune in. I actually just watched the clip on YouTube, and my god, their response to it was horrible. Diesel Patches actually did a video responding to the first video and took it down, or at least privated it, because of the fact that he didn't know if they were joking or not, and because they came out with that joking narrative, he actually privated his video because he's like, oh, well, I guess they are. Now, this is very out of character for Diesel, in my opinion, because every single time somebody does try to do this type of thing, he's usually the first person to call them out, though I don't know if he's actually saw their actual response to it. But yeah, that's what we're going to be looking at today, as well as the very first video. So yeah, these two are just, oh my god, a piece of work. Let's go ahead and watch, shall we?
To be honest, I almost started to protest this show because
Why?
I'll tell you why. And this is our question of the week. We saw what happened to Nate Robinson, so I'm going to ask Jake Paul right here in front of America. Jake, consider where we are right now in our racial conversation in America. Was what you did to Nate Robinson racist?
Notice how she builds up to this question, knowing that the American people are watching, and even stating, given the state of the society that we live in today, she's clearly building up to this serious question. And the fact that she does smile could hint at the fact that it could be a joke. It's highly unlikely given the fact that she took it so seriously at the beginning of it. Now, she asked this question to a man who's no fucking stranger to controversy whatsoever, so this could be a stunt to try to go ahead and get some sort of viewership or something like, oh, we interviewed Jake Paul and he came off as racist. But clearly that didn't really work because Jake Paul somehow grew in maturity when it comes to responses, as you'll see now.
That is the question of the week.
Man.
Nah, stop playing with me. Come on.
At this point, it would be really fucking wise to say that it's a joke now, because, yeah, as you can tell, Jake Paul's getting a little bit anxious there. He doesn't want to answer it. He's telling you not to play with him. And then you continue to ask the question, trying to push it onto him. Yeah, it's not a joke at that point.
Listen, Jake, it's a sensitive time right now. We just had to witness a white man just knock a black man smooth out in front of all of America. So that's why I asked that. But just tell us about that moment real quick, because it looked like Nate was asleep before he ever even hit the canvas.
The fact that you could even ask that question whenever we're in sensitive times and you expect a real answer, it's not a good look for you, especially when you switch up so quickly after he doesn't want to ask. You ask him a normal question, and then you continue to berate him throughout the interview, saying that, hey, was it racist though? Now, the argument could be made that, hey, she swapped the topic first because that can be seen as her trying to make a quick joke and moving on from it because people can get butthurt. But then she and her co host ask the question again and push it onto him even harder, thus throwing out any possibility that it is a joke.
Yeah, I mean, this is what we train for. At the end of the day, boxing is a sport, and you train to win, and that's what I went in there and did, and I worked hard for this, and Nate is the one who called me out originally, so
I think
Very well put response by Jake Paul. It was his opponent who called him out first originally, and he only fought him. Sure, he knocked him out, but that's kind of part of the sport. You gotta knock him out.
Okay, so let's start from the beginning.
okay.
First and foremost, was it racist to knock a black man out?
I believe this chick's name is Jamele. I don't know which one of Cari and Jamele she is, but I'm guessing she's Jamele. As you can clearly see, her face is extremely serious as she reinstates this question. Now, who knows? Maybe Cari meant it as a joke, as the question of the week, but Jamele wants a definitive answer. And because Jake Paul answers correctly in saying that it's a shitty question, it's a sport, that has nothing to do with it, she gets really defensive whenever he actually says that.
stop asking me that. I said no.
It's not racist.
It's a shitty question. It's a sport.
Why is
That's
it
what
a
you train
shitty
to do.
question? Why is it a shitty question?
I don't know about you, but if Cari did mean this as a joke and Jamele didn't know or knew it was a joke and was trying to make it serious, Cari should really fucking step in now and correct her co-host Jamele because this is getting out of hand. Clearly she wants him to say that it is racist or it's not racist. It is a shitty question, but she's questioning how it's shitty, meaning that she's going ahead and getting on Jake Paul's case for literally no reason, even though it was a joke to begin with. This is a huge problem as it's never made clear to even Jake Paul that it's a joke throughout this entire interview, and he just can't handle it. Like, he's trying his best to, but Jamele is too pushy, and Cari doesn't do anything about it. It's just a huge mess.
Because how does this have anything to do with race? It doesn't.
It's a
At
fine
least-
question. We got to wake you up. You got to be a part of this conversation.
No, he doesn't have to answer at all. See, Jake came onto an interview for his boxing match, not for race wars. See, this is what's wrong with these two here, because Cari isn't saying anything, even still, after Jamele says we have to, quote-unquote, wake you up. Meaning, he has to be woke, join the conversation, answer seriously, talk about racial issues in America. Was he racist for punching out his opponent? Anyone with a brain can tell you that they're treating this as a serious topic rather than a joke. Now moving on to their horrible, horrible response for after the backlash that they got, saying that it was a joke, and then coming on to their show and not providing any context to their joke, not saying that they told Jake Paul, not saying that they told anyone. Apparently, they're the only ones who knew about this joke, even after the backlash that they got. Nobody knew, and it's conveniently said that it was a joke after the backlash and that they're somehow the only ones who knew about it.
I want people to pay attention. You see that sound that was coming out of my mouth? You see what this was? It's called a fucking joke. So everybody, this clip has gone viral, Cari. We have had to accept a lot of the blowback. We were trending for a couple of days. So just go in, dude, because this is really the most, I've been a part of a lot of controversies, as you know. This is the silliest, stupidest controversy I've ever been associated with. I will give the floor to you now.
It must be so easy to say all this after you took a week to come up with the little line, "It was a joke all along."
It is not a controversy. I will say this. Maybe our joke didn't land because people didn't want it to land. Maybe it wasn't funny. Fine, I'll take that too. Maybe the question was silly, but it was meant to be silly and stupid. We have covered sports basically all of our professional careers. We are aware of the fact that knocking someone out is a part of the sport. Please don't be silly.
Actually, a lot of people would go ahead and beg to differ. It is very controversial. Not because of the fact that it's a professional sport, but the fact that you tied something so controversial like, oh, I don't know, racial issues to the said sport. Yeah, it's gonna be very hard to take you seriously, especially when you, Jamel, were the one taking it so seriously. You're the one who brought the conversation back up, and not to mention you had went ahead and asked why it was a shitty question, despite knowing it was a quote-unquote joke. Let me ask you this. Why would you ask if it's a shitty question so seriously if it was a joke? Unless it wasn't a joke at all, and Jake said something that you didn't want to hear because he didn't play your little race war game.
However, I do want to say this. I'm really okay with them not liking the question or even our show or even us. Here's what I'm not okay with. The real reason why we're getting so much blowback. For many, many folks at home, is really about the people who ask the question, not the question.
Incorrect, for the question is actually enhanced significantly in value depending on who's asking it. You, a black woman, asked a white man if knocking out a black man in a boxing match was racist. Your entire point just now was stupid.
Let that marinate. Because if you are really outraged by that question, you would not be in my DMs or on Twitter saying that I should be raped, that my family should be killed, that I am a nigger with a hard ER.
See, people like this don't really get to whine and complain about death threats or racial remarks. I don't condone them, and I'm not saying that she deserves them, but she's acting as though there's no reason for those being said in the first place. I'm pretty sure that if the roles were reversed and you were asked by a white man or a white woman if you knocking out a white man slash woman was racist, and they took it as seriously as you did, and they were just as persistent as you were, you'd probably be a little bit outraged too, especially if you waited a whole week only to hear that it was a joke. It just seems like a big cop-out just to get out of controversy. Like, oh, it was a joke, we're trying to damage control this as much as possible. Kind of like what you're doing.
Because I asked a question to a YouTuber you didn't like, you guys go to the other extreme.
That right there is red flag number one. Thinking that just because we hate Jake Paul, it's okay for you to ask that question. Thus confirming in a way that it wasn't a joke to begin with. You're so fucking pathetic. Jake Paul is a human being, no matter how fucking stupid he is. Yeah, he's not the best guy in the world, and neither is his brother, but they are open and susceptible to criticism. However, they do not deserve something like this. They don't deserve to have their name thrown in the mud just because it would give your show a little bit of ratings to go ahead and try to trick them into getting a racist topic going. You are honestly pathetic.
Raped, killed, my family should be dead, I'm a nigger? That's disgusting. And by the way, I've never in my life experienced any of that.
I'm not trying to glorify people calling her the N word, but maybe it's because they saw that you were trying to get him to admit to a racist topic. Like you were trying to get him to answer wrongfully, like pressure him enough to come off as racist, and that's just as bad as the N word. So maybe that's why people called you that. I wouldn't have called you that. I would have just called you a cunt.
And I know what the intention is to make sure that we stop doing what we do, and that speak truth to power. Well, you've empowered me even more. I will talk about racism. I will talk about inequality in America. I will point out when this system is unfair to those who don't have the mainstream rights or the rights that are perceived for them. And that does not mean you can call me a nigger, say I need to be raped, and my family should be dead.
This is honestly flag number 2, and what actually makes it out as what it is. She just inadvertently admitted that the reason why she asked this question to Jake Paul is not as a joke, but because she thinks that Nate Robinson was mistreated, and mistreated racially on top of that he didn't have a voice to speak up on, and you are trying to be that voice. I'm sorry, but like, it was a boxing match. You wouldn't say that all this stuff, unless if it was a real question. You just played yourself so hard on so many levels that it being a joke is now completely out the question. This on top of the fact that you waited a week just to go ahead and say it was a joke. Yeah, no, it's undeniable proof that you are actually doing this for, well, political views. It's not a question at all. You wanted Jake Paul on live TV to come off as a racist. He didn't. You got pissed. You got backlash for it. You came up with a lazy excuse, and then you came up with this horrible response to it. You are a horrible human being. I think you guys' show should be canceled. And, like, yeah, I hope that you don't go ahead and get poor and all that other stuff. But, like, you definitely deserve some form of consequence for this. So, yeah, that is this video today, guys. It's obvious that these two are insane and wanted Jake Paul to come off as racist. I hate to admit it, but the guy was in the right. I felt bad for him. I feel as though I had to go ahead and do this video because at the point that I actually did think about doing it, nobody else was talking about it. And then everybody else started talking about it, and I was like, fuck it, I already made a plan to do it. So yeah, this has been this video. I'm 9 subs away from, as of recording this, from 50. If you guys can go ahead and get me there, that'd be greatly appreciated. So yeah, these two were fucking assholes.